what are we hiring for, and what is the right process to hire those first growth hires?
So the first question I would ask is if the goal of this growth hire is to bring more signups and customers in, so acquisition, or to improve return on total users, customers, or revenue once those customers sign up for your product in the first place.
How does that change the person that you have?
So in the first camp, where you're really focused on acquisition, the right archetype of a hire is growth marketing. This is someone who's worked in data-driven marketing, who understands the dynamics of key data-driven campaigns. In some cases, maybe has experience with community-led growth or content marketing, depending on exactly, what you think might work well, given what you know or what you don't. In the second case, you're looking for someone who is more comfortable interfacing with or is an engineer. And the reason for that is that actually meaningfully changing the code base of the core product is necessary to have the change that you're seeking. In general, it's hard in growth because LinkedIn might just say growth. And it's not clear if that candidate is someone who's got more of a marketing background or more of a product and engineering background, but the work they are experienced in will vary.
Can you have someone who does both, or is this the mythical unicorn?
I think it's a bit of a mythical unicorn. There are some folks out there who've dabbled in both. For example, in some of my earlier work, I was more focused on growth marketing, and now in my later work, I'm more focused on the product side. But in general, especially if you're only hiring one person, if your team is small, if you're focused on making sure that you get good return and you just want to try with one person, it's going to be very hard to find someone who can do both.
Can I ask you, when we go down to the hiring process then, what questions should we ask to understand the quality of candidate? And let's actually be specific. Let's focus on the kind of maximization of value post-product, the engineering-led candidate. What questions would we ask there? What case studies would we do to understand the quality of candidate? I've never done this before. You're educating me.
I think interviewing for growth is really fun, especially if you're looking for someone experienced, because the prompt can actually be pretty straightforward. What I would do is give that candidate our website and have them sign up for the product, maybe ensure they can have access to, more than just what they would normally have if they signed up today, on the website, and ask them to spend some time and come back with their ideas for what we could be doing better to grow the business more effectively and to have more impact, more users, more revenue. The reason why I think such an open-ended question is effective is a great growth practitioner should be very creative and deliver probably, at least a few, 3 or 4 net new ideas in that interview process that you haven't thought about before to be an additive hire to your team. And a good growth practitioner should understand comps in the market, to my earlier point, very well, and be able to say, hey, looking at your onboarding, looking at your pricing, I see some gaps here. I think you could be more effective if you followed this tactic. What I understand from my community is that these other mechanisms might be more impactful, and give you some recommendations, even without seeing the data or understanding, the details of how things are working today.
Do you give them time? Is this a take-home task, or do they do it in the office with you?
This is a take-home.
This is a take-home task. Okay. And so that's what good looks like. What would some red flags be? We can have that as green flags. Are there anything where you'd be like, yeesh, didn't like that?
The biggest red flag to me is when I hear a heavy bias towards experimentation. So maybe requiring every change made in the product to be an experiment, or over focusing on optimizing, adding friction, removing friction, raising prices, reducing prices, versus making substantial changes to the core product experience itself. And the reason why this is a red flag to me is it suggests an over focus on needing experiments to validate judgment, where in early companies, actually having the right judgment before you make an investment is important so that you get return on how you spend your time. And also, it would suggest to me an over-focus on optimization rather than an ability to think more critically about how the product serves the user and how value is derived from that. So ideally, things like new features might even be something that a growth leader could suggest or contribute because they have a thesis on how that feature will help the business, rather than just saying, let's add a couple tooltips here or a couple buttons over there.